Microplastics are tiny plastic particles, usually less than 5 millimeters in size, that have become a growing concern for scientists and environmentalists worldwide. These minuscule fragments originate from a variety of sources, including the breakdown of larger plastic debris, synthetic fibers from clothing, and even personal care products like exfoliating scrubs. Because of their small size, microplastics are nearly impossible to filter out of water systems and can be found everywhere, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains. Understanding what microplastics are is the first step in recognizing their widespread impact on our planet. The journey of microplastics begins with everyday plastic products. Over time, exposure to sunlight, wind, and water causes these items to break down into smaller and smaller pieces. This process, known as fragmentation, is a major contributor to the presence of microplastics in the environment. Additionally, microbeads, tiny plastic spheres used in cosmetics and cleaning products, are intentionally manufactured at microscopic sizes. These microbeads often escape wastewater treatment plants and end up in rivers, lakes, and oceans, adding to the growing problem. One of the most alarming aspects of microplastics is their presence in water sources. Studies have detected microplastics in oceans, rivers, lakes, and even tap water. These particles are so small that they pass through most filtration systems, making their way into the water we drink and the food we eat. Marine life such as fish and shellfish can ingest microplastics, which then travel up the food chain and potentially end up on our plate. The widespread contamination of water sources highlights the urgent need to address this issue. Microplastics have infiltrated our food supply in surprising ways. Seafood is a well-known source, as marine animals often ingest these particles. However, microplastics have also been found in table salt, honey, and even bottled water. The tiny size of these particles makes them difficult to detect, and their presence in food raises concerns about potential health risks. Scientists are still studying the long-term effects of consuming microplastics, but the evidence so far suggests that no corner of our diet is untouched. It's not just water and food. Microplastics are also present in the air we breathe. These particles can become airborne through the abrasion of synthetic textiles, tire wear on roads, and the breakdown of plastic waste. Once in the atmosphere, microplastics can travel long distances, eventually settling in remote areas far from their original source. This means that even people living far from the ocean or major cities are exposed to microplastics daily. Marine animals are among the first to feel the effects of microplastic pollution. Fish, seabirds, and even whales can mistake these tiny particles for food, leading to ingestion. Once inside their bodies, microplastics can cause physical harm, block digestive tracts, and introduce toxic chemicals. The accumulation of microplastics in marine life not only threatens individual species, but also disrupts entire ecosystems, affecting biodiversity and the health of our ocean. Potential health effects of microplastics on humans are still being researched, but early findings are concerning. Microplastics can carry harmful chemicals and pathogens, which may enter our bodies through food, water, or air. Some studies suggest that these particles can cause inflammation, disrupt hormones, and even affect our immune systems. While more research is needed, the presence of microplastics in our daily lives is a growing public health concern. Beyond marine life, microplastics also affect terrestrial and freshwater wildlife. Birds, insects, and land animals can ingest microplastics directly from the environment or indirectly through contaminated food sources. These particles can accumulate in their bodies, leading to health issues and even death. The widespread presence of microplastics in various habitats shows that this problem is not limited to the oceans. It's a global issue affecting all forms of life. Many personal care products, such as facial scrubs and toothpaste, once contained microbeads, tiny plastic particles designed to exfoliate or clean. Although many countries have now banned microbeads, products containing them still exist in some markets. When these products are washed down the drain, the microbeads bypass water treatment systems and end up in natural water bodies, contributing to the microplastic problem. Washing synthetic fabrics like polyester and nylon releases tiny fibers into the water system. These microfibers are a significant source of microplastics, as they are too small to be captured by most wastewater treatment plants. Every time we do laundry, thousands of microfibers can be released, eventually making their way into rivers, lakes, and oceans. This highlights the hidden environmental cost of our clothing choices. Our tires are made from a blend of synthetic rubber and plastic. As vehicles travel on roads, tiny particles are worn away from the tires and become airborne or washed into waterways by rain. This road dust is a major source of microplastics, especially in urban areas. The constant movement of traffic ensures a steady supply of these particles to the environment, making transportation a significant contributor to microplastic pollution. Larger pieces of plastic waste, such as bottles and bags, gradually break down into microplastics due to exposure to sunlight and physical abrasion. This process, called photodegradation, is slow but relentless. Over time, even the most durable plastics will fragment into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually becoming microplastics that persist in the environment for decades or longer. Microplastics are not just a problem for water, they're also found in soil. Agricultural practices such as using plastic mulch or sewage sludge as fertilizer can introduce microplastics into the ground. These particles can affect soil health, water retention, and even plant growth. As microplastics accumulate in the soil, they may also enter the food chain through crops and livestock. Recent studies have shown that plants can absorb microplastics through their roots. This means that crops grown in contaminated soil may contain microplastics, which can then be transferred to humans and animals that consume them. The impact of microplastics on plant health is still being studied, but early findings suggest that these particles can affect growth and nutrient uptake. Microplastics have been detected in both bottled and tap water around the world. Their small size allows them to pass through most filtration systems, making it difficult to remove them completely. This means that every glass of water we drink could contain tiny plastic particles. The long-term health effects of consuming microplastics in drinking water are still unknown, but their presence is a cause for concern. Table salt, especially sea salt, has been found to contain microplastics. As seawater evaporates during the salt-making process, any microplastics present in the water become concentrated in the final product. This means that even something as simple as seasoning your food can introduce microplastics into your diet. The widespread contamination of salt highlights how pervasive microplastics have become. Honey is another surprising source of microplastics. Bees can collect microplastic particles from flowers, water, and soil, which then end up in the honey they produce. Studies have found microplastics in honey samples from around the world, indicating that even natural foods are not immune to this form of pollution. This discovery underscores the far-reaching impact of microplastics on our food supply. Bottled water is often marketed as a pure and safe alternative to tap water, but studies have found that it can contain even higher levels of microplastics. The packaging process, as well as the plastic bottles themselves, can introduce microplastics into the water. This challenges the perception that bottled water is always the healthier choice and raises questions about the safety of plastic packaging. Seafood is a major source of microplastic exposure for humans. Fish, shellfish, and other marine organisms can ingest microplastics directly from their environment. When we eat seafood, we may also be consuming these tiny particles. The accumulation of microplastics in seafood is a growing concern for food safety and public health, especially in communities that rely heavily on fish as a dietary staple. Even beer is not immune to microplastic contamination. Studies have detected microplastics in beer samples from various countries, likely introduced through water used in the brewing process. This finding demonstrates how microplastics can infiltrate even processed foods and beverages, making it difficult to avoid exposure in our daily lives. Some tea bags are made from plastic or sealed with plastic adhesives. When hot water is poured over these bags, microplastics can leach into the tea. This means that a simple cup of tea could be a source of microplastic exposure. Choosing loose-leaf tea or biodegradable tea bags can help reduce this risk. Tap water around the world has been found to contain microplastics. These particles can enter water supplies through various sources, including runoff from roads, wastewater, and the breakdown of plastic pipes. The presence of microplastics in tap water is a reminder that this issue affects everyone, regardless of where they live. Microplastics have even been detected in rainwater. As these particles become airborne, they can be carried by wind and eventually fall back to Earth with precipitation. This means that microplastics are cycling through the environment in ways we are only beginning to understand, reaching even the most remote and pristine locations. Snow samples from remote regions have been found to contain microplastics, indicating that these particles can travel long distances through the atmosphere. The discovery of microplastics in snow highlights the global reach of this pollution and the challenges of preventing its spread. Microplastics have been found in the deepest parts of the ocean, including the Mariana Trench. These particles can sink to the ocean floor, where they accumulate in sediments and are ingested by deep-sea creatures. The presence of microplastics in such remote environments demonstrates the persistence and pervasiveness of plastic pollution. Arctic sea ice has been found to contain high concentrations of microplastics. As the ice melts due to climate change, these particles are released back into the ocean, further contributing to marine pollution. The discovery of microplastics in the Arctic highlights the far-reaching impact of human activity on even the most isolated ecosystems. Cities are hotspots for microplastic pollution. Urban runoff, tire wear, construction debris, and litter all contribute to the presence of microplastics in city environments. These particles can be washed into storm drains and rivers, eventually making their way to the ocean. Urban environments highlight the connection between human activity and environmental contamination. Even rural areas are not immune to microplastic pollution. Agricultural practices such as using plastic mulch, fertilizers, and irrigation systems can introduce microplastics into the soil and water. Wind and rain can carry these particles from fields to nearby rivers and lakes, spreading the contamination far beyond its original source. Microplastics have been found in some of the most remote places on Earth, including uninhabited islands and mountain peaks. Wind, water, and wildlife can transport these particles over vast distances, demonstrating that no place is truly untouched by plastic pollution. This global distribution makes microplastics a uniquely challenging environmental issue. Microplastics can move up the food chain as smaller organisms ingest them and are then eaten by larger predators. This process, known as biomagnification, means that top predators, including humans, can accumulate higher concentrations of microplastics and associated toxins. The movement of microplastics through the food chain is a major concern for ecosystem health and food safety. Microplastics can act as carriers for toxic chemicals such as pesticides and heavy metals. These substances can adhere to the surface of microplastics and be transported through the environment. When animals or humans ingest microplastics, they may also be exposed to these harmful chemicals, increasing the risk of health problems. Some chemicals found in plastics such as bisphenol A, BPA, and phthalates are known endocrine disruptors. When microplastics are ingested, these chemicals can leach into the body and interfere with hormone function. Hormone disruption can lead to a range of health issues, including reproductive problems and developmental disorders. Emerging research suggests that microplastics may affect the immune system. When these particles enter the body, they can trigger inflammation and immune responses. Over time, chronic exposure to microplastics could weaken the immune system, making individuals more susceptible to infections and diseases. Microplastics can cause physical irritation and inflammation in the tissues of animals and humans. When ingested or inhaled, these particles can become lodged in organs or tissues, leading to chronic inflammation. This ongoing irritation may contribute to a range of health problems, including digestive issues and respiratory conditions. Microplastics can affect the behavior of wildlife. For example, fish that ingest microplastics may experience changes in feeding habits, predator avoidance, and reproduction. These behavioral changes can have ripple effects throughout ecosystems, altering population dynamics and food web interactions. The accumulation of microplastics in the environment can threaten biodiversity. As more species are exposed to microplastics and their associated toxins, populations may decline or even disappear. Protecting biodiversity requires addressing the root causes of microplastic pollution and reducing plastic waste. Ecosystem services such as clean water, fertile soil, and healthy fisheries are threatened by microplastic pollution. As microplastics accumulate in the environment, they can disrupt the natural processes that support human well-being. Protecting ecosystem services is essential for sustainable development and future generations. Plastic production and waste contribute to climate change by releasing greenhouse gases during manufacturing and decomposition. Microplastics in the environment can also affect carbon cycling in oceans and soils. Addressing microplastic pollution is an important part of the broader effort to combat climate change. Improving waste management systems is crucial for reducing microplastic pollution. Recycling, proper disposal, and reducing single-use plastics can help prevent plastic waste from entering the environment. Community initiatives and government policies play a key role in managing plastic waste effectively. Innovative solutions are being developed to tackle microplastic pollution. These include biodegradable plastics, advanced filtration systems, and new materials that break down more easily in the environment. Supporting research and innovation is essential for finding effective ways to reduce microplastic contamination. Governments around the world are enacting policies to reduce microplastic pollution. Bans on microbeads, restrictions on single-use plastics, and improved waste management regulations are some of the measures being implemented. Policy changes are a critical part of the global response to the microplastic crisis. Consumers can help reduce microplastic pollution by making informed choices, opting for products with less plastic packaging, choosing natural fibers over synthetics, and supporting companies with sustainable practices all make a difference. Small changes in daily habits can collectively have a big impact. Education is key to raising awareness about microplastic pollution. Schools, community groups, and media campaigns can help inform people about the sources and impacts of microplastics. Increased awareness leads to more responsible behavior and greater support for solutions. Ongoing research is essential for understanding the full impact of microplastics. Scientists are studying how these particles move through the environment, their effects on health, and ways to remove them. Continued investment in research will help us develop better strategies for tackling microplastic pollution. Microplastics are a global problem that requires action from individuals, communities, businesses, and governments. By understanding the sources and impacts of microplastics, we can all play a role in reducing plastic pollution. Whether it's making sustainable choices, supporting policy changes, or participating in cleanup efforts, every action counts. Together, we can work towards a cleaner, healthier planet for future generations.